Good afternoon, good evening, depending what time you're running this session. Hope you guys enjoyed last week with just a little bit of introductions to know who we are. I thought it'd be good today if you would like to start off asking or answering this question. If I could spend today doing whatever I desire, what would it be? Great question. If I could spend today doing whatever I desire, what would it be? So just share a little bit amongst your group. Unless you've had some discussions beforehand, which is great. But if you'd like to, you can use this question just to get some chatter going on and just get to know each other a little bit better. So if you're a group leader, you can press pause now and go through the question and then push start as we go on. Welcome back, or welcome to Game Plan. So for those that are not sure what's going on, if you missed last week we looked at who we are as Festival, who's who in the zoo. So we looked at who the local leadership team are and who are the other sites that are make up Festival Church. And we're calling this thing Game Plan because every team that plays a sport has a game plan. So if we use football as an analogy, if you are playing for Manchester City or if you're playing for Liverpool, you're both playing football, but each of the game plans are different. So when it comes to church, our goal, if any church's goal is to get people to know Jesus. That's what we're here to do. But how we go about that is different. And Game Plan just explains how we as Festival Church Prestatyn view the world and how we want to reach others, our game plan. So that's why we've called this Game Plan. Last week we looked at introductions. This week we want to look at what does it mean to be part of Festival Church. So if you look there, so last week was introductions. This week we're going to look at what it means to be part of Festival. We're probably going to split it up into two sessions. So this week and next week we'll be looking at what it means to be part of Festival Church and Festival Church Prestatyn. Then the week after we'll look at the gospel, our understanding of the Holy Spirit, some expectations, what we can expect from you and what you can expect from us. And then the last session is perspectives, just kind of like what views do we hold under certain things. So who we are and where do we fit in. So if you see me looking down, I'm just reading some of my notes. So Festival Church began as a number of separate congregations around North Wales that became friends and realized that we all have a similar style, we're all on a similar journey, and eventually over time became one church family. We're all looking to do things a similar way. We realized that the value of shared governance, and we wanted to express God's heart and God's mission to North Wales and to the world eventually. So that's where we are. And each site is unique. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we want to celebrate the diversity and a unity at the same time, which is quite an interesting tension to manage. So there's definitely a diversity amongst Festival. All the sites have subtle differences in the way we do things and the way we express and the style and the heart of the church. But yet at the same time, we have one vision. We're all trying to achieve the same goal, and we really believe God's called us to do that. So we have multiple sites amongst Festival. There's definitely along the North Wales coast. There's one in the mid Wales. We've got one in Wrexham and one in Chester. So we're going to come up with our definition. What does it mean? What is Festival Church? So we have this definition. You can see on the screen. Hopefully you can read it. It says Festival Church is one church family made up of many congregations, each with a heart for mission in local communities, regularly gathering to celebrate the goodness and love of God, welcoming everyone to join us on the incredible transformative adventure of following Jesus. And then we continue. Our definition says, with shared governance and one vision, each congregation develops its mission within its unique context adopting best practice in key ministry areas. So I just want to have a quick look at the definition. So we are one church family. So when we talk about festival, although there is uniqueness in each of the different sites or the different congregations, we are one church family together. We want to reach people where we are. So Festival Church Prestatyn is reaching festival people in Prestatyn and close to that. Every site, the goal is to become a local community and reach people in that community. We gather regularly to celebrate the goodness and love of God. So that's part of our worship, part of the way God's called us to do stuff, part of what God's called us to do as Christians. And I love this statement. This is one of my things that's most excites me about being part of this. We welcome everyone, doesn't matter where you are in life, what your views are, where you stand, to join us on the incredible, transformative adventure of following Jesus. I know for myself, and I know many of you will share this, when we come to encounter God, we change. God changes us, and usually for the better. Hopefully, always for the better. So I think maybe that's a good space for those that would like to. Maybe you can press pause now and maybe just share briefly in your group, how has following Jesus changed you? So the question, if you'd like to discuss, how has following Jesus changed you? I mean, that's a big question. Maybe just take a few moments per person to share, how has following Jesus changed you? So if you're a group leader, it might be good to press pause now. Welcome back. Hopefully that was encouraging. It's amazing how God's changed each one of us, and every person's story is so important. We're going to look at the following, it says the second part of the definition is shared governance and one vision. Each congregation develops its mission within its unique context, adopting best practice in key ministry areas. So we're going to look at a few of those things. So what does that mean? We're going to mix it up a little bit. We're not going to go in that order. We're going to start with one vision. What does one vision mean? When we say as Festival Church we have one vision, really we're trying to answer the questions, why do we exist, how do we serve, and what do we do? So this would include conversations about our church culture, our church style, our strategy, our beliefs, and our values. So if we answer the question, why do we exist? Really, based on the foundation of we're here to glorify God, we're here to make Jesus known, we go, every community needs a church, and every church needs a community. And we hold strongly to this. If you've been part of Festival or Festival Prestatyn especially, we are, there's this increase in sort of urgency to start planting churches. Locally, we are growing, our buildings reaching capacity, and we really sense that God's calling us to plant churches. And we believe that every community needs a church, and we really want to reach out. And that does not just mean in North Wales. It could be anywhere in Wales, could be anywhere in England, in Scotland, in Ireland. It could be anywhere in the world. We believe God's calling us to do that. And we want to be open and say yes to every opportunity that God gives us. So why do we exist? Because every community needs a church, and every church needs a community. How we see this unfolding and how we see God doing this is actually, we use this little poem, where earth meets sky, where God meets humanity, where we meet humility, and together we make history. And if you've been at church, usually once a year we look at each of those lines, very brief summary, where earth meets skies. We believe that people encounter Jesus, people encounter God, people have these moments which, whether they're Christian or not Christian, go, God is real. And we believe part of our gatherings, people experience that, but also people experience that outside, and they come in saying, I've had this encounter, what do I do? So people encounter God, where God meets humanity, and that's really our understanding of the gospel, where we realize that actually Jesus came down to earth to reach us, to help us, to connect with us, to understand us, and to save us. Where we meet humility, that's where we recognize what Jesus did. We surrender ourselves. Once we surrender our lives to Jesus, together we make history. And that's the unfolding adventure of following him, the transformative adventure of following Jesus, where God uses each and every one of us to point others to him and to make him known. So that's why we exist. Well, how do we serve? We want to serve in three ways. I mean, we can serve in multiples, but the three things we hold dear to as Festival Collective: we want people to serve wholeheartedly, we want people to serve creatively, and we want people to serve relationally. Wholehearted, I think that kind of like describes itself. We want people, when you say you're going to be there, when you commit to something, you commit. It's you say, I'm going to give all myself to this. Creatively, I think often misunderstood as artistic. Our broad definition of creativity is taking chaos and bringing order. So we need musicians take notes which are often chaotic and they bring it into some sort of order and they make beautiful songs. People who cook take what raw ingredients which in and of themselves don't do much, put them together, bring order into the chaos. Beautiful. People who do finance take figures that are all over the place, they put them in some order, and it brings order into the chaos. And that's when it comes to creativity. So we celebrate all forms of creativity. And lastly, we believe we are highly relational. We want to make sure that there's always a conversation. There's always room for a conversation. So that's how we encourage people to serve. Maybe briefly, if you'd like to, as a small group or as a connect group, to say which one of those do you think you personally do well in? Do you serve well wholeheartedly, creatively, or relationally? And maybe to be vulnerable and say, you know what, I could grow in serving in one of those 3 years. I could grow in wholeheartedness. I could grow relationally, or I could grow creatively, or recognize that God's put creativity inside of me and I need to express that in whatever form. So maybe pause now and which one of those 3 do you do well? Which one of those 3 could you grow in? So welcome back. We're nearly done with this session. So what do we do? So as a church, what's our goal? What are we trying to do as Festival Church? So first of all, we want to facilitate community in community, and that requires us to get together. So we have our big groups, which is our Sundays and maybe some of the biggest services. And then we have smaller groups, which is connect groups and small groups. And so anytime where we get together, we want to facilitate community within community. We also want to inspire people. Hopefully in those spaces, we inspire people to live well in God. So what does that mean? We want people to grow. And our heart is that we make disciples who make disciples who make disciples. That there's this continuous movement of always someone is discipling someone who's discipling someone who's discipling someone. And we want to encourage you that be prepared to be challenged to step out and maybe spend time with someone and help them grow in their faith. Spend time with someone and just be with them, listen to their story and encourage them and share your wisdom and your life experience and your understanding of God and help them to understand God a bit better. And then lastly, we want to equip people to make a difference. Really, that's about mission. And we want to help people see their full potential in what God has called them to do. We want to celebrate that. I don't want people to just sit in church on a Sunday and do nothing. I want people to be connecting with God, connecting with others, and supporting what God's doing, whether that's through prayer, through their resources, through their time, whatever. But to come here and just sit is not good. We want to send you because that's part of God's makeup for the church, is to send people. And then we're looking at shared governance. So we've looked at how do we exist, why do we exist, and we want to talk about shared governance. This is one of the quite a unique attribute when it comes to a church model, because there's lots of different church models, but shared governance is quite a unique model. And really, we're looking at answering the question, who does what? So that's including questions around finance, around resources, about networks, about leadership. So briefly, who does what? So within each church, there's a local leadership team, and they really oversee the ministries that happen within the local church. So there's people who are overseeing ministries. Then lead pastors within local churches oversee the local teams, or the ministry of the local leadership team. And then over that is the senior pastor who leads the ministry of Festival Church. So you can see there's sort of a structure where everyone's accountable to someone. There's conversations going up and down in all those spaces. And then last, and probably some of the most valuable people who fit within the festival model, is we have an operations manager who coordinates all the shared resources. So this person makes sure that our governance is, our admin is doing well, and that people are following procedures and all that stuff. And that's really helpful. And then last but not least, we spoke about the trustees last week, and their role is to provide governance accountability. Sometimes we say their job is to keep us out of the papers and out of jail. We want to make sure we, with integrity as a group of churches, do what within the law of what the country's asked us to do, to make sure that we follow those rules and regulations that are put in place. So that's who does what. And then we use this phrase that there's a unique context, and this is very important when it comes to the festival model, is that each church has the wiggle room, for lack of a better word, to actually adapt to the context of the local church. So we use our example, we have Towan, which is sort of 5 miles from Prestatyn, but yet the contexts are so different, and the leaders are different, and the leadership teams are different, and we have a freedom to express all these things in ways that fit who we are. And then as we start planting churches, we're going to have to recognize that those churches will have a unique context, and we have to celebrate those unique contexts and allow the churches to grow in their context, rather than trying to go, well, this is what we do, so you all have to do what we do. And that's not what we're looking at doing. So there's a unique context. So it's a nuanced shift. And then we're looking at best practice. So we spoke about best practice, and this answers the question how we go about doing things. So this is conversations about safeguarding, administration, and ministry practices. So we're asking the question, how do we do it? Well, we try look at best practice. As a group of churches, we go, you know what, these are things we believe is the best practice in this space for this time. And we look at how we do it. So it's pastoral care, how we do rows, which is our big gatherings, how we do circles, which is our small gatherings, our pathways, which is how we disciple people, and then last, how do we do projects? And projects is like mission trips, it's reaching out, it's our so fair share and food bank is a project of us. And how do we look at those projects, and how do we use those projects? So, and collectively we sit down and go, what works best in these spaces? And then we try across the site to adapt what is working best at that current time. And we're going to stop there. Next week, we're going to look at what do we believe, and really look around discipleship. But yeah, so we'll stop there for now. So let's go back to our definition again. Whoops, there we go. So the definition, I'll read it off the screen. Festival Church is one church family made up of many congregations, each with a heart for mission in local communities, regularly gathering to celebrate the goodness and love of God, welcoming everyone to join us on the incredible, transformative adventure of following Jesus. With shared governance and one vision, each congregation develops its mission within its unique context, adopting best practice in key ministry areas. So that's part of what it means to festival. Next week we'll look at what we believe and how we view discipleship. So I think it's definitely keep that as a separate session. But I encourage you maybe to chat about, ask your group leader, what excites you about this definition, and maybe what challenges you, and maybe if there's any questions to ask and see if amongst the group you can answer it. If not, to let me know, one of the leadership team know, and we can try and answer those questions as best as possible.